It is a strange thing that all the memories have these two qualities. They are always full of quietness. That is the most striking thing about them. And even when things weren't like that in reality, they still seem to have that quality. They are soundless apparitions, which speak to me by looks and gestures, wordless and silent, and their silence is precisely what disturbs me. Eric Maria Remarque. All Quiet on the Western Front. Hi everyone, and welcome to the final episode of Authentic Wellness Season 1. It has been quite the journey to getting here, and I have been stalling, and by that I mean sitting on the idea of releasing the final episode, conflicted by titles, content, and what I assume will be taken away from this short final episode. I want nothing but the best for my healers, and nothing but the worst for the draining memories that take hold of our day-to-day, even though it's been years since the trauma, the pain, and the ongoing suffering. For this episode, I wanted to, of course, leave you with a hopeful message, as what we talk about in every episode is the necessity of unraveling hope. But for this one, I hope to give you clear points of action that drive you to make changes or to simply breathe in a peace of mind that these things will be there for you when you are ready. We are all on a different path of healing, and quite literally, I feel like I've just begun mine. With my mind filled with unanswered questions of the why and how and who caused all this to affect me in such horrific ways, I find that as quiet as these thoughts can be when their presence is with me at work, at gatherings, at therapy, it's how silent they are that really causes me to think about how much more time we have together. How many more years will I be taunted by neglect, by tragedy? And when tragedy strikes in the present, I'm left with nothing more than a hopeless, empty, caving heart. Let's look at a timeline, perhaps. If I were to ask myself, is this where I saw myself 10 years ago, at age 14? 2014, to my childhood self, was possibly one of the best years of my life. I think it was the only year of my childhood that I truly felt like a child. It was a year of innocence. It was a year where I could let loose and be free, and where I was free to hang out with people who did not go to my school, who were not in my immediate circle, where I was given a lot more freedom, and where I was free to be careless and just me, and where I met some of the most wonderful people that are still in my life to this day. 14 was special. And it was fun, and I look back on pictures, and I'm lucky that it was a time where Snapchat was first becoming a thing, and I was able to capture innocent moments of carelessness and innocence before I came of age, before I went to high school. I loved my 8th grade year. I was happy, but the trauma, the pain from what my life really consisted of kind of was hidden away. It was put away, and it was able to be stowed in a place that I could return to when I felt that I needed to, when I felt that I could. And I was given that freedom and that luxury to basically hide it from other people and myself. And so I look back and I'm grateful for 2014 and all that came with it. But it's 10 years later now, and I feel freshly 14. I feel like I am still able to take on that youthful role and be able to be present in the situations that I was in at 14. But one thing that is strikingly different is where I am in my life now and what I know now, and that in a million years would my 14-year-old self think she would be talking about her trauma on Spotify, on all these different platforms, and giving speeches and presentations on how to heal from complex trauma. Little did she know that she had PTSD at that age, and that the next 10 years would be filled with so much experience that I think her mind could have never processed all that she was about to go through. All that came with high school, all that came with college, which were probably the most intense 4 years of my life, I think, because from 2018 to 2022, I went through so much, and I frankly don't think she could have processed it by any means. But not only that, I think she saw myself as my older self, me, who I am right now, being kind of like the saving grace of her life, the one who would pull her out of the pit of despair. And in a way, we were able to do that. We live independently now. We have a job. We don't do anything we don't want to do. Yes, but in the back of my mind, I feel like she would have thought I would have been more successful, a little bit more successful, having like a corporate job or something, having a family by now. I knew, like in the back of my mind, it was always like, I want to have 3 kids by 26. And here we are at 24. And it's cute to think about the innocence that came with her and the dreams and hopes she had. And I'm not like downplaying on my dreams. Like I still have big dreams and my life is not worthless. Like there is nothing wrong with it. And I have come such a long way. But would she have seen me where I am today? Absolutely not. I think she would be a little bit disappointed, but I really don't hold that against her because there is something with CPTSD that does take up a lot of your time so that your future and your adulthood can be a state of thriving. And that is a hard thing to accept because for some people it's like, I don't want to waste my time healing. I just want to move on to the next stage of life and pretend that I am healed, pretend that these memories don't exist in my mind because it is too much. And the hard truth of that matter is that eventually the mind is not going to completely hide it for you. It's always going to show up, as we talked about, physically. It's going to show up mentally. It's going to show up in almost every course and trajectory of your life. It is unavoidable and it is a tragedy that we have to grieve. But overall, like, we are here to instill hope. Every helping professional, every student right now studying to become a psychologist, a social worker, the medical field, I think these people have a special place in my heart because they are going to be the people that will interact with individuals with CPTSD who undergo that healing process, who take steps to heal, and we're all working together overall. Before I get into the 3 main components that I want to emphasize in this episode, I want to talk about the cycle. And we've talked about it before, but I feel like the more I repeat myself, it is necessary to repeat myself in a way because a very common theme in the whole series is that the cycle is real. And what do I mean by the cycle? Well, let's look at it from the bottom up. For me, it would go back to my own experiences, my childhood, the onset of growing up in a very dysfunctional home full of various family problems due to financial, socioeconomic status, the family dynamic, different factors that played a role in how I learned to view the world very early on. The parentification, the neglect, the constant comparison, the placing everyone against each other, and overall just living in an environment where people were not free to speak their minds and not free to act how they wished. And there were a lot of restrictions that came with that. As in most dysfunctional homes, there is this cycle of abuse that goes on that is kind of pushed under the rug. It is pushed under, and for generations on end, it takes one cycle breaker to expose all that and all hell breaks loose. And in my story, that was me in the family home. But when I say the cycle, this is what I mean. When people grow up being exposed to a lot of things that come from the ACE scores, like the violence in the home, inequality, injustice, scarcity, like so many things that affect dynamics of people, it is obviously going to lead to ongoing abuse. It is going to lead to people forming very skewed perceptions on how life works. Like we talked about before, the brains of people who have trauma work very differently. We process things very differently. It causes a lot of confusion and oftentimes it causes developmental delays. And it is not our fault. This is just what we learned and how we learned to process things that were way too big for the young little minds that had to be exposed to these things. So in my case, I was very unaware on how the world worked, which led to me making dead-end decisions and placed myself in risky situations, and those that in a way felt comfortable but did not. We talk about the adrenaline rush in people who have ADHD, who have We talk about the seeking of adrenaline being a very common thing in people who have gone through very scary situations, because it feels comfortable to them. We notice that girls who grew up in homes with an absent father or with divorced parents end up again in toxic relationships. It is a cycle, and it's horrible. But I think individuals with CPTSD are so good at finding the sweet spot between chaos and comfortability, because it's all we know. To us, it's our reality. So in a way, I was always attracted to dysfunction, but in my mind, it was completely different. It was a completely different narrative. So in a way, I was always attracted to dysfunction, but realistically, I thought it was completely different. I thought I was attracted to solution, stability, and clarity, which is far from the truth. I would often get myself in situations that required a lot more effort, that did not bring about a lot of reasoning, but in my head, it made sense. And to me, like, being the know-it-all, being someone who has always had to make decisions for themselves, like, if you want something, I have to get it. And that kind of instilled in me a know-it-all. And I would think that what I am doing is the best for myself and for other people, which makes me such a great leader in the most sarcastic way I can say that. So I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought I was essentially helping myself for the better and being literally 5 steps ahead of everyone. But it was far from the truth. I was 5 steps behind everyone, because you just don't know. People don't know. So because of this, I wanted to provide this final episode of the season with 3 secure methods on finding healing in any stage you are in. The first one being support, the second one is purpose, the third is detoxification. The third one literally came out of nowhere, but again, my emphasis on taking a holistic approach to healing never ends. For people tuning in for the first time, or if you need a recap on the definition, holistic healing is healing that targets all aspects of the human mind, body, and soul. Holistic healing is healing on a physical, mental, and spiritual level. If one area of your life is not receiving assistance in healing, it will take longer to fully achieve that status of healing that most people want. But again, this is not intended to stress people out, that if you don't heal this way, you'll never heal, or something to start panicking about because you don't know how to heal all at once. We heal with what we can, and what we can grasp in the moment. There is no shame in working slowly. Again, this is what I do on the regular basis. Every day I take it bit by bit, and that is okay. And being able to understand that healing takes time and it will take years, but also letting that not frustrate or get you down, because as we like to emphasize, that life is beautiful and it is a gift to be here, whether people have diminished that ideal in you or broken you down to a point that you feel like you shouldn't be here. But it is important to be present. It is important to see yourself in a new light. And in the hopes of healing, I hope that you can gain a new perspective on how you view yourself, how you view your place in this world, because once you see the beauty of the soul that you were given, it only allows for growth to take place from then on. Isn't it crazy that I waited 6 months to do this episode when 6 months ago was literally the worst time of my life? In comparison to the last 8 episodes, I am very much different. I know I had different intentions for this episode. I know there were things planned, and as life goes and the unfortunate the unfortunate events that continue to happen to me always are here. They are always present. I try my best not to let them get me down, but in February of 2024, I lost someone who meant everything to me. It wasn't like a death, but it was more so a very intense trigger that I wouldn't wish on anyone. I had been put through a situation that I never in my wildest dreams saw myself going through. I lost everything, or so I thought. I lost everything. I went through a series of intense grief. In a way, thought I was going to relapse, and in many ways I did. I went back to my old ways of coping, and I am very ashamed of having to do that. But what gives when you have complex trauma? One of the biggest triggers that you can face is abandonment out of the blue. A big theme in us with this diagnosis is that we grow up thinking or wondering why people think we're insignificant. We grow up questioning every area of ourselves and wanting to literally be perfectionists to not disappoint anyone. And so when I lost this person, I think I in a way started thinking and contemplating every part of my life, and like with no shame, like all the reoccurring thoughts that I had worked so hard to heal and to process, they just came back like they were never processed before. And I think that's the very tricky part in healing, because you think you work and work so hard to recover and repair all the pain and dissect little things and make sure that each part and like fragmented piece of your life receives a glimmer of hope and receives some form of therapy. But it is so incredibly hard, because one thing happens, you get triggered and you have started from scratch. And if there was one thing I would say would be more painful than just living my childhood in a very dysfunctional home, it would be the reoccurring thoughts that were present to me as a child, but again, that resurface when I am triggered as an adult. There is nothing more painful, because you're kind of bounced back into who you were, but you're in an adult body. It is no longer appropriate or okay to behave in ways you did. It is no longer reasonable for you to take a month off to recover. Like, it's just, there's so much you have to work with, because now you have all these obligations and responsibilities, and the pain that comes with grieving is that most people will not understand. Most people will not understand why your life is falling apart and why you choose to act the way you do. And it's very tricky to explain to people that I am going through a tough time and I just need my space. And for a period, like for about a couple months, I did isolate, I did shut down, and people were starting to ask questions like, what is going on? And it was embarrassing, because it kind of brought me back to the past. It was a blast from the past. I worked so hard to put myself in a place that I can show others and demonstrate the resilience that I have towards other people and be that strong person for other people. But then one thing happens and I am somehow on the bottom half of this scale. I am literally clinging on to everything that will give me hope and that will give me a sense and purpose to live, and it is so hard. It is so hard to fall back. It is so hard to fall back, and it is so hard to gain that sense of self again and recognize that you have worked all this way to become who you are, to be where you are. You have to look at what you've done and pick up on that healing again. In my mind, that was probably one of the hardest things I've ever had to go through at my grown age, and it hurts because I don't have all the answers to my own problems. And I don't think I will. Again, with the 3 steps of healing that I want to bring in today, I hope to inspire you guys with some takeaway points to recap the whole episode, and I hope that you take them into consideration. The first one is support. We stress this so much. So what does support mean to me? Support is everything to me. Support is community, fellowship, and in a way, inner peace that you can give yourself. It hurts to see people who go to me or go to other individuals, other professionals I talk to, and be like, I have no one to talk to about what is going on. And it also kind of hurts to see that they're like, oh, we'll give you a therapist and you can tell them everything. Because in a way that's good, but in a way it's like, I think it will never be enough as genuine as forming a connection with someone who is willing to listen and that you don't have to pay for services. But that's just me speaking. I want to emphasize how getting support can be very difficult, especially with people who grow up alone and people who grow up not being liked or having to do everything for themselves. It is very difficult. But I encourage you to seek any resources that are available in your community to find someone. I'm not bashing on the therapist individual dynamic, the therapist and the client relationship. I'm more bashing on the fact that you have to pay someone to hear you out. You know, it's not ideal, but it is a start. And I think it can be very beneficial, or definitely a good start. And those people can definitely refer you to different community groups and places where you can gain support initially. There is nothing more beautiful than forming a connection with someone who you just meet randomly. Like, you guys cross paths and bond, and that becomes someone you can confide in. And I hope with my whole heart that this person does not mistreat you or does not go behind your back in some way, because that would suck. And I've been there, and it is so hard to find supportive people. I think they come and go. Another thing to remember is that people come and go. People are not permanent is another big thing, but people come with different seasons of your life. And when the universe, God, thinks it is time to move on, that person will be removed from your life, and it's very hard. It's hard to get through that stage, and it does come with grief and it does come with pain. But for a time, you can look at, this person really served me during this point of my life, and it helped me get to where I am today. Don't give up on the idea that you won't find other people. That is very, very important. There are some warnings that I do want to give when it comes to what we were talking about before, and that is the cycle. A lot of us have formed really toxic relationships. I'm going to be straight up. A lot of us have gone to people for convenience or because they find us convenient. And when it comes to finding someone that is supportive and good for you, it comes from both ends. You are able to support each other well, and you are able to hold each other accountable. Accountability is key, and without accountability, I think a lot of lives and broken, fragmented relationships are formed. But I hope to, in the future, provide resources and more communal guidance on how to build relationships, because it can be hard, but they can also be formed anywhere, everywhere, and at any time. So you never know. I encourage you to look at each relationship with hope, and I encourage you to wake up each day hopeful that maybe today will be the day you meet someone that will walk alongside you and will help you get through this time of pain, because again, it is temporary. This is not your forever, and I really want to emphasize that for sure. Would definitely be purpose. My second point would definitely be purpose. There have been many times in my little young self that I have questioned, like, why am I put on this world? I know I have dreams and desires, but I don't know exactly where to take all this. I'm not necessarily talented in one specific area, though I wish I was. I wish I would have pursued something long term. I did so many things at once that I still yet have yet to know what my talents are. I have gifts, but I don't know. It was always a struggle in the back of my head, like, what am I good at for real? But finding your purpose, if there's something you enjoy, do it, even though you don't think you're good at it. I encourage you to do it. If you have a goal in your career, find a way to get there. It sounds so direct and like probably the worst advice you have ever heard, but I encourage you. The main thing is to not give up with your goals and aspirations and what you want to do with your life. If there is one thing that you can hold on to and one thing you can grasp to, is who do you want to make out of yourself? What do you want to see yourself do in the future? And may it give you joy and peace and prosperity as you grow. Is there something you are so passionate about? And if you have passion, like, good job, that's great. I think a lot of people with the complex trauma really struggle finding passion in anything because they're so depressed. They've given up. They feel low. They feel numb and flat on a regular basis, that it is so incredibly hard to find something they love, to find something they want to do long term. And if you do find something, I encourage you to stick with it till you die. I encourage you to grab onto something and make it yours, because in the end, it is probably one of the most beautiful things to see someone pursuing something they love. And by all means, I recognize the financial aspect of those things, but I encourage you to ask and form connections and build connections and network. If you are interested in the arts or anything well, that was what I was interested in, were the arts and finding connections, and I just continue to do that day by day. A lot of good resources to find are schools, job platforms, and basically people you interact with at work or in a social setting, it doesn't hurt to ask. It does not hurt to ask for something that you want, even though we've been told the opposite our whole lives. No, my third point is detoxification. This goes along with the holistic side of healing. You have to identify areas physically that are hurting. Pay attention to the symptoms that your body is showing at your age. Pay attention to things that seem abnormal, or desires you have, impulses you have, feelings you have, what the body is telling you. I know a lot of us are very prone to developing things like autoimmune and having low immunity, just struggling a lot with our health because our symptoms are super weird and random, and I think that leads to a lot of confusion and a lot of despair. But I encourage you to, if there is something, write it down, make note of it, and if you can, make an appointment with a health professional. If you can't, then I think research on ways to live a healthier, more purified lifestyle definitely does the trick. I know that's the route I have taken, a route I have taken before, not being able to afford the best healthcare. A lot of what I do is work with alternative medicine and discuss with people interested in natural remedies and just finding a way to heal our body and to nourish our body and to give it what it needs. A lot of that involves cleansing and detoxing in a healthy manner, in a way that does not harm our relationships with food, that does not involve eating less or eating more of something. It is really more like a cleanse to give your body a restart and your gut like a fresh start, so you can have a clear peace of mind, and so you can gain that clarity back and gain that control back over your body. Again, besides the physical, we really want to encourage the mental, whether that be seeking therapy, counseling, or just taking steps to getting a diagnosis for other things that you may be concerned with. I think this calls for making time to have peace, taking time to relax, taking time to have self-care. And I know that is not the ideal situation for many of us who are struggling to maintain an income, to acquire money, and to support ourselves and maybe others. But if you can give yourself maybe an hour or two a day to relax and really take time to focus and process some things, and to overall rest the body and give the mind a chance to debrief, give the mind a chance to rant, give yourself a chance to cry if you need to let stuff out. It is all about finding what works for you, and I would be more than glad to help you guys find resources on how to heal, how to help yourself heal, and where to get professional help with symptoms that you may be having. Spiritually, I encourage you guys to dive into your faith. I know that has been one of the things that has helped me overcome a lot of things, understand a lot of the whys, and why things had to happen to me. It brought me a sense of rest. It brought me a lot of opportunities to be calmer with who I am, and to present myself in a more calmer way in front of other people. And I know that sounds like really like weird and stuff, but it is something that I had struggled with for a long time, how to not be as impulsive, how to not approach people with aggression. And I just think growing in my spirituality has helped tremendously with that. It has made me more down to earth. It has made me been able to forgive people who hurt me. And I think that has been one of the greatest gifts I have received from the holistic aspect of healing, is the forgiveness on myself and the forgiveness on other people. There are so many ways to heal emotionally, psychologically. I just encourage you to find it, and I encourage you to reach out, whether to me or to other people or professionals you know, on steps you can take to begin healing now. I want our listeners to come out of this episode feeling empowered and feeling hopeful, that despite their arduous past, there is light at the end of the tunnel. Talking to people who are on the other side is extremely crucial for healing. My goals for this series was to instill hope, and I really hope I was able to achieve this in some way, shape, or form. I do hope to continue other seasons with this, to dive deeper on more specific topics that you guys want me to talk about. And there have been definitely so many other topics I hope to include in future episodes. Again, I want to put out a final thank you to all my listeners who have joined me on the start of this journey, which has been way more than I expected. I wanted to thank my followers, supporters, and people in my life who have inspired me to make something out of my gifts and abilities, to spread awareness on an issue that deserves much attention. When I started this series, I was not expecting to get this much clout, but I did, and I'm truly grateful. As a final message of healing, I wish that each and every one of you embrace your healing journey and that you may learn to live authentically well.